Okay, it's 5:30. Let's start our meeting. Welcome everyone to the regular city council meeting of January 9th, 2023. I'd like to ask the city clerk at this point to call the roll.
Counselor Long,
Present.
Counselor McLaughlin,
Present.
Counselor Randall,
Present.
Counselor Richardson,
Present.
Counselor Runyon,
Present.
Mayor Mays.
Present. Item 3 is Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to ask Councilman Dan Richardson to please lead us in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 4 is oath of office. At this point, I'd like to ask our city clerk to direct the proceedings from here.
I'm gonna start with you, Mayor Mays. And what I'm gonna ask you to do is give you the stand here so that you can get a good picture of you. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Richard E. Mays,
I, Richard A. Mays,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the United States of America and the state of Oregon
of Oregon,
and the charter and ordinances of the city of The Dalles,
and the charter and ordinances of the city of The Dalles.
and that I will, to the best of my ability,
I will, to the best of my ability,
faithfully and honestly perform
faithfully and honestly perform
the duties of mayor of the city of The Dalles
duties of mayor of the city of The Dalles
during my continuance therein.
during my continuance therein.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And then next will be Tim.
Okay. Well, you're ready. I, Tim McLaughlin,
I, Tim McLaughlin, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States of America and of the state of Oregon and the charter and ordinances, city of The Dalles, and that I will, to the best of my ability, faithfully and honestly perform the duties of counselor position number 1 of the city of The Dalles during my continuance therein.
Congratulations, sir.
Mr. Randall. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me.
I, Scott Randall, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States of America in the state of Oregon, and the charter and ordinances of the city of the Dalles, that I will, to the best of my ability, faithfully and honestly perform duties of counselor position number 3 of the city of the Dalles during my continuance therein.
Just for the record, all 3 of these people were re-elected in November. So they're moving forward into another term representing us. Thank you.
Is there cake and ice cream now? We take a break?
Well, you were here earlier. You could have got some.
Thank you very much, and looking forward to working with the city council for however long I can last.
Your reelection.
And congratulations to Scott and Tim for your respective elections. Okay, number 5 is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
It's been moved by Councilor Runyon and seconded by Councilor Randall to approve the agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Item 6A is our audit presentation, something we look forward to every year. Hopefully, we're still solvent. And at this point, I'll call on our finance director, Ms. Angie Wilson, to introduce the item on the agenda.
Yeah, good evening, honorable mayor, members of council. We will have our audit presentation by Tim Gillette. He is our auditor for the 2nd year, and he'll be doing the fiscal year 2021-22 audit. Tim?
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Am I in the meeting?
Yes.
Hear you.
Yes, great, thank you. I'm Tim Gillette. I'm an audit partner with Talbot, Corvola, and Warwick, your outside independent auditors, usually referred to as TKW, here to present the audit for the year ended June 30, 2022. I usually go pretty quickly through this because that's how I've learned most councils would like it, but I'm always happy to take questions or slow down if anybody desires that. So your annual comprehensive financial report, it is a big document. We're talking, I don't know, 150 pages or something like that. Actually, only a small part of it is really the auditors, and that's our opinions that appear through here. Most of this really is the product of Angie and her staff, and so big thank you to them, because we could not do the audit without their diligent work. So the first part that's really mine, and I will point out a few differences here as we go through, because there are a couple of differences this year compared to prior years. Our independent auditor's report is indexed as capital ABC. The form of the report was changed this year by auditor's governing body. Used to be our opinion was down towards the bottom of the first page, and I would tell you the good stuff was at the bottom. It's changed so that the opinion is now right up front. It is the first thing you see. The good thing to report is that it is, again, an unmodified opinion, sometimes known as a clean opinion. So the auditor's good housekeeping seal of approval. Our opinion, the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects. We then go through a bunch of other stuff, the basis for our opinion, the responsibilities of management, our responsibilities, and how much the degree of responsibility we take for some of the other information in the ACFR. There are certain parts that we don't really audit, although we read them carefully to look for any discrepancies or anything. But I won't really go through all of that. Our report is then followed by management's discussion and analysis. And this is the part I really encourage everybody to read. If you don't read all 150 pages in detail, and frankly, I imagine that most of you do not or will not, management's discussion and analysis is a great summary. It gives some context, historical background. It has some summarized financial information in a comparative form, which the basic financial statements only have the single year. So the comparison is interesting and helpful. After the management's discussion and analysis are the basic financial statements. Starts off with a statement of net position. There's really just one change I would point out this year. The Governmental Accounting Standards Board issued a statement a few years ago, GASB 87, on leases. The kind of the underlying basis for the opinion is that leases are a financing. So there's a change this year in the accounting for leases. You don't have a lot of leases and they're not real big dollars, so it doesn't have a huge change on your financial statements, but you will see some things that haven't been on here before. The way leases are accounted for now, if you lease something from someone else, you're the lessee, you get an intangible right of use, and that goes on your balance sheet. Also, all of your lease payments, the present value of all of your lease payments through the end of the lease ends up in your long-term liabilities. So on your statement of net position, you will see some lease assets and capital assets that you wouldn't have had before. On the other side of things, where you're the lessor, leasing something to someone else, you record the net present value of all of the lease payments that you're going to receive over the life of the lease, but that's not all revenue to you, of course. So it becomes a deferred revenue item on the balance sheet, and it gets recognized over time as the lease goes on. So that's the only big change in accounting principles or presentation this year. And I don't know, other than those changes, I don't know that there's a whole lot we need to go through here, other than to say, like I said, the financial statements are fairly presented. There are a couple of other reports from us at the back, one in accordance with governmental auditing standards, and one in accordance with Oregon state requirements. The state asked us to look at a few things. You did have a small, very small, $622 over expenditure in the debt service or a capital projects fund for debt service. Not uncommon and nothing I would get overly excited about. We did have two findings that are reported in a separate letter to the board, and I will say one of them we considered a material weakness just because of the size of the dollars involved, where the city had entered into a loan agreement with Business Oregon on the Dog River Pipeline project, and that was originally booked as revenue instead of as an other financing source. Now, actually, I'd say governmental accounting is a little bit unusual. I don't know how many of you are in business outside of this and do accounting on a normal accrual basis, but in governmental accounting, that loan agreement becomes an other financing source. It's not really revenue. That's a classification in the fund statement, but on the statement of net position, that makes a big difference. So that was the finding there. Also, the recording of bad debt expense. And this one I can understand, again, how it was a little bit confusing. Bad debt expense was recorded to deferred revenue instead of to bad debt, to an expense account. And it's because it was in your proprietary funds, water and sewer. Now, we had talked with Lisa or Angie last year about how to record an allowance for doubtful accounts, but it had to do with court receivables and in the governmental funds, not as opposed to the business type funds. In the governmental funds, the recording of that is different. It goes to deferred revenue, whereas in the business type activity funds, it goes to an expense. So they had booked these for water and sewer into in deferred revenue instead of the expense. So those were our two findings. neither one of which I would call a huge deal. Again, the first one on the loan only because of the large dollars involved. So, any questions? I know I went pretty fast.
That's okay. Like you said, I don't think anybody on the council minds. Does anybody on the city council have any questions for Mr. Gillette or for Ms. Wilson? How many other municipalities do you do audits for?
It is the main part of our practice. We do a handful of cities, a handful of school districts, and one county.
Mhm. Okay. Anybody else?
No.
Council Runyon.
So, so they were material, but minor in that they easily corrected. That was the only issue.
Well, yes, the one that I called material is just because of the large dollars involved, but in effect, it's almost a reclassification from just between the way it's accounted for in the governmental statements as opposed to the entity-wide statements, if that makes sense.
So not an uncommon type mistake or what have you, but easily fixed.
Yes, easily fixed.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else? Thank you. How long is the TKW contract for? Is it,
I believe it's 3 years, but Angie, you might know better than me.
In review, it's 3 years or a 6-month term of letting one or the other to not do the contract any longer.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gillette. We appreciate your presentation. And is there more years on the 3-year contract?
One more.
One more year? Okay, we'll see you next year.
All right. Thanks very much. You all have a good evening.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you, Tim.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Okay, item 6B on the agenda is Safe Space Children's Advocacy Center presentation by Beatrice Lynch. If you just step forward and give us your name and address
Russ.
and your title.
Good evening. My name is Beatrice Lynch. I'm the Executive Director of Safe Space Children's Advocacy Center. And I'm delighted to be here with you all. Closer. Okay. Better? Okay. Thank you all for allowing me to come and talk to you about Safe Space and the work that we do. A couple of you have been to our center and have taken a tour. Councilmember Darcy Long and Mayor Mays have been to the center. I'm going to give you a little brief description of what a Children's Advocacy Center does. We're the Child Abuse Assessment Center for this area. We serve 5 counties in the Columbia River Gorge: Hood River, Wasco, Gillum, Wheeler, and Klickitat County. And what that means is that when there's an allegation or a suspicion that a child's been hurt, has been abused, the call goes out to either law enforcement or DHS, Child Protective Services. The second call goes out to us for us to get an assessment scheduled. Instead of the child having to go to all of these different entities to tell their story, they have to go to law enforcement. Sometimes they have to go to DHS. Or if there's medical needs that they need, they end up at the ER or at their own private doctor. All of these professionals come to us. And so the family gets to be seen by everybody who needs to know the information at our center at one time. We are able to do what is called a forensic interview. And what that is we've got specially trained folks that can interview children to elicit the story in their own words. The interview is recorded, and it's also being able to be seen basically in real time in another room from the professionals that need to hear this information. Law enforcement, DHS, the medical doctor that we work with is there. We may have advocates that need to be there as well for the family. They're able to hear the child tell their story in their own words. It's recorded so that if anybody needs to go back and listen to it, it's recorded and they can do that. Then we also do a medical exam, and this is really, really important. because instead of the child having to go to the ER where they're going to sit in the waiting room or they're going to be sitting there for a long time to be seen, they can be seen with us. And we work with 3 providers right now that are specially trained to do abuse exams, which is a very special thing to do. Not all ERs are able to do that. Not all ERs have the capability of recording any evidence that could still be potentially on the child. We do. We have those specially trained providers and the equipment to be able to document any injury on the child. We do pediatric rape kits. It's hard to say, but they exist and we can do them at our center. I like to say that it's the first step for the healing process. It's an important work that we do. We serve, like I said, 5 counties in the Columbia River Gorge. A lot of the work that we see comes from this county, from this city. 60% of our caseload comes from the Dalles in Wasco County. So
Could you
it's
repeat that
important.
percentage? Did you
60%.
60, okay.
60%. Last year was the biggest year that we've seen. We saw 180 cases in our center. It's a lot. Previous year, we saw 134. If the trends continue, which all indications say they are, just because we're coming out of a pandemic, our kids are hurting. And we see that in the cases that we're seeing. Instead of getting the phone calls from the schools where a teacher saw a bruise or something, these calls are now coming from the ER with very serious abuse happening. So we're not alone. This is happening throughout the state, where I speak to my colleagues all around the state, and they're seeing the same increase, the same number of injuries that are a little bit more serious than before 2.5 years ago. So this is what we do. That's what a child advocacy does. We're one of 22 in the state of Oregon. We serve a big area in this Columbia River Gorge area, but we're also really unique that each our individual counties couldn't put together a CAC, a child advocacy center on our own, but together we're able to provide this great service to the children that we see. And we're also, our families are used to moving back and forth through this area across the river. So it just makes sense that we have a child advocacy center that serves the Columbia River Gorge. So the reason I'm here talking to you is that about 1.5 years ago, we started a capital campaign to find a permanent home for our center. We rent a small space in Hood River County, the city of Hood River. It's 1,500 square feet. When we were small and we started out just serving Hood River County, it's fine, plenty of space, but we have outgrown this space and we need a permanent home. Our building sold about 1.5 years ago, and that really triggered the fact that we're vulnerable, that we could be kicked out, and then we're trying to figure out where we're going to set up a shop and set up a medical clinic. It is what we are, a medical clinic. So we started talking to some folks all over our service area, and we thought we are going to launch a capital campaign. We had great success last year. Anna Williams, who used to be this representative for the Hood River area, I know it's all switched around now, was able to secure a $2 million investment into this center. And we were so incredibly grateful because that really jump-started our project. This fall, we found a building and we purchased a building. We continue to fundraise because now we have to remodel this building to retrofit it for our needs. We are going to have a state-of-the-art building that we're able to see 2 different types of cases or 2 different cases at the same time with enough room that these families wouldn't have to meet. We're still a small community and we're very protective of the very sensitive information that we gather. So that's really important that we don't have families in the waiting room saying, hey, what are you doing here? So it's going to be very private. We're also going to be able to hopefully cut down on the waiting time. Right now, we can see 1 case at a time. Sometimes if it's a long assessment, we can only see one a day because of the amount of time that it takes, especially if there's siblings that we're interviewing. So it could be 5-6 hours to get it all done. So it'll cut down on the wait time. Because some of these cases are sensitive, especially when you have a child that I want to disclose now. I don't want to wait 2 weeks from now. I want to tell you what happened to me now. Or the fact that DHS and law enforcement need this information in order for them to do their job. DHS needs the information to make sure that the child stays safe. Law enforcement is looking to see if there's a crime commitment and who needs to be arrested. So it's really important for us to have this center and to be up and running now as we're seeing the caseload. So that's my presentation of what we do. The reason I'm here talking to you all is because I would like to ask for the city council to make an investment in this project. Like I had said, 60% of the kids that we see come from the Dalles or Wasco County. And at the end of this project, we're looking to have a permanent home based out of Hood River, just because that's where our funding came from originally. But we also want to have a satellite office in the Dalles. Again, if we can move our team here to make it easier for a family, instead of having them to drive all over town or all over, up and down the gorge, we can come and meet them here, to bring our doctors here, to have the forensic interview done here. So that's all part of this, this project that we're on. Not sure if you have any questions, so I'd like to answer some questions if you.
Any questions for Ms. Lynch? Counselor Runyon.
So I'm going through the flyer here and whatnot. You said you're the second or third call from law enforcement when cases arise. So are you related to the state at all, or is this more like Mid-Columbia Housing and McCad, where you're a private agency?
Completely a nonprofit private agency. That's why sometimes families have some discomfort about talking to DHS because they're the state, or talking to law enforcement. When they come to our office, we're like, we don't belong. We're not part of law enforcement. We're not part of DHS. This is a service that we do. So sometimes it's able to open up those doors and get some trust built with families that come in that have some issues or mistrust with law agents.
Is there funding available from the state?
We do get some funding from the Department of Justice through a grant that is called CAMI grant, which is the monies that the state of Oregon collects out of fines, assessments, and stuff that are reallocated to each county for the purpose of child abuse investigations. So each county gets a pool of money of that. Wasco County gets that. And that's the contract that we're getting through to serve Wasco County comes from that grant money. And I can tell you, it's $40,000 a year. It doesn't come close to covering the needs.
Yeah, thank you.
Other questions? Counselor Long.
Thank you. Yeah, so when I came and took the tour, we were talking about that, and I was really surprised that you provide this very important resource to help children once they've been through something so horrible to, make the process, and hopefully, going through with all the professionals and the videotaping, that there can be a conviction if that's appropriate at the end, make it as easy on the child as possible. But I was really shocked at how little funding comes from each county for this process. And I went to one of your fundraisers, and I know the capital campaign is separate, but can you talk about how the program itself is funded in addition to the $40,000 that comes from the Department of Justice?
So we have a separate contract with each of the counties that we serve. And so we get some money. For example, Wheeler County is on a case by case. They're such a small county, and we don't see that many cases from them. So when they contract with us, they contract for each individual case. Wasco County gives us a set amount each year, as well as Hood River County, as well as Klickitat County, as well as Gillum County as well. So we are funded through those. We still do fundraisers. We have 2 very important fundraisers every year that still help with the services that we provide. I mean, up until the pandemic, we were doing a garage sale still. So it's piecing together all of the different resources and able to provide the services to children. Children never leave our office with a bill. They are never charged for any part of the services.
Thank you.
Where in Hood River is this new facility?
It's going to be, well, it is. It's located behind Walmart, if you're familiar with Hood River. It's the street is Wasco Loop. We chose it because it's off the main strip of the Dalles. So you do have a little bit of privacy, but it's also really close off and on the freeway, which is important for the folks that are traveling to come see.
And have you identified a site in the Dalles for your satellite office?
I have not. Have some conversations with the hospital and hopefully some other like-minded medical facility that would give us, some space or rent us some small space to use.
Okay. And are you approaching other cities, municipalities within the 5-county area?
Yes, we got a very good endorsement from city of Fossil. They're a small county and we don't see a lot of cases, but they believe enough in the work that we do that they wanted to go out and give us a donation.
Is the money you get from each of the counties based on a formula, or is it just whatever they choose to give you
As far as supporting for services
Yeah.
or for the campaign,
for the services?
it's based on a formula depending
Okay.
on.
Thank you. Anybody else? Council Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Beatrice. Can you tell me, has the county, have you had the conversation with Wasco County about supporting the capital campaign?
Not specifically for this, but I have spoken to the commissioners.
Yeah, what's your time frame for the capital campaign?
So this is a really important time right now because we're entering what we're calling the public part of the campaign. We've gotten over half of the money that our goal. So
You've got 2.7 of the 5 and you're looking for the other 2.3.
yes.
Thank you.
So we're about halfway, a little over halfway, and we're entering the public phase of it. We have some grants out through two big foundations, Ford Family and Murdoch. And those two could be a significant amount towards this goal. But they're also looking for me to see if I have public support. They're asking to see if our community supports this project. And this is really an important time for that. I really would like to have commitments from every service area to say, yes, we support this.
Besides the sooner the better, do you have a time frame for when you really feel like you need those commitments?
We would like to be in our new building by the end of the year, by the end of 2023.
Do you have an ask for the city of the Dalles?
I would
What
like
would you-
to ask 500,000 from the city of the Dalles.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much for your presentations.
Thank you.
Very informative. Thank you.
Very much.
Item 7 on the agenda is audience participation. During this portion of the meeting, anyone may speak on any subject which does not later appear on the agenda. Up to 5 minutes per person will be allowed. Citizens are encouraged to ask questions with the understanding that the city can either answer the question tonight or refer that question to the appropriate staff member who will get back to you within a reasonable amount of time. If a response by the city is requested, the speaker will be referred to the city manager for further action. The issue may appear on a future meeting agenda for city council consideration. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak to the city council for up to 5 minutes on any subject which is not on the agenda? Ms. Marsh.
Good evening. Thank you.
Orlis Marsh, 1401 East 21st Street in the Dalles. I come tonight with just information. I represent the Wasco County Cultural Trust Coalition, which is a group Dan knows about us.
Good evening.
Yeah, he's one of the original. We're a group that gets together, and what our main purpose is to promote cultural activities in Wasco County. And the other main purpose that we have is that we receive money from the Oregon Cultural Trust, which is the statewide organization, to distribute in our county. And so right now a grant cycle is open. And the information is on there on this sheet that I just handed out. I'm sorry, my color printer died today. And so black and white doesn't do our picture. But all the information can be found on our website, and that's the important thing. The application is on the website. The deadline for the application is February 17th. It is open to any group or any individual that would like to do a project or a program in the arts, heritage, and humanities. Questions?
Any questions from Corliss? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 8 on tonight's agenda is the city manager's report. Mr. Klebs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Few items for the council this evening over the holiday break there, getting back, and had a meeting with the director for Parks and Rec, one of our partner taxing districts here, Scott Baker. Also wanted to let the council know that we are moving forward with our facility supervisor and economic development officer interviews. So hope to have some good news on that front shortly. And then two more financial items I wanted to let the council know about. And that was first around the use or utilization of some of the SAFE or safety money that the council is aware of and that we've received in years past. And that is my intention to use some of that safety money, about $3,100, to support some front desk security and de-escalation training for our staff here, both at City Hall and Public Works and some of our other facilities. And part of the reason I wanted to bring this up to the council is that historically, there's been a practice to seek approval from the city council for the use of these safety funds. But I wanted to remind the council that we have policies and procurement procedures for the use of budgeted funds, and that I intend to follow those when it comes to the use of these safety funds. So for some of these smaller procurements, I'd like to be able to use these funds expeditiously and when we have these different opportunities for training. But of course, for some of the larger items that we have to come and seek council authorization for, we'd certainly follow that procedure. So that was a little departure from some past practice. And so just wanted to let the council know. And similarly, we have begun to receive some of the opioid funds associated with the national settlement. And we will be continuing to receive those funds for some time now. But with the money that we've received to date, there are two items that have come up that are a good use, in my opinion, of those opioid funds. And that first is a procurement of a drug testing device to support and better protect the police department when they have certain chemicals or drugs or potential exposure to something that may or may not contain drugs. This drug testing unit will allow us to more readily evaluate whether or not something is present. And some of these substances can be absorbed through the skin. And so being able to identify what may be in a particular material is important. And that's approximately $7,000. The other one is in partnership with Mid-Columbia Housing. And this also involves several other entities, including Mid-Columbia Community Action, as well as Wasco County and I believe a few other counties and cities. And what Mid-Columbia Housing is working through is some federal data that comes down every 5 years or so, identifying what the average rent is in our community. And that data is used to benchmark some of the different housing programs that Mid-Columbia Housing has. And the federal data that came out in this most recent batch apparently shows that the average rent in our community has gone down over the past few years, which I think many of us would disagree with simply from our observations living in this community. And so Mid-Columbia Housing has contested that data, those results, but the burden is on them to provide supporting information and data to assert that average rents in our community have not indeed gone down, they have gone up. And so they will be procuring and working with a consultant to gather that information. And I've reached out to some of the area partners to collaborate and work in supporting the cost of that. And so that again is another $7,000 associated with these housing programs. And that would be an appropriate use of those opioid funds. There are substantial guidelines and requirements and criteria for how these funds are used. And this is the first time that we've used those funds. So we'll be sure to continually evaluate and make sure these funds are used in the proper way. But wanted to let the council know of my intent to use those funds in that manner as well. And I didn't want to steal Lisa's thunder. I thought she may have come up here, but the Chamber Gala is coming up next Thursday. I believe it's a Great Gatsby themed. And so please let the clerk know if you're interested in attending that, and we can help facilitate tickets for you. Other than that, that is my report.
Thank you. Item 9 is city council reports. We'll start on my left with Council Runyon.
Nothing to report.
Okay, Council Richardson.
Thank you very briefly, Mr. Mayor. Had a couple of conversations with city staff, including our illustrious manager and city attorney recently. Both have been satisfactory. Had a number of conversations and meetings with a climate task force subcommittee, moving that work along. Hope to see the light of day on that pretty soon. And got to see our public works folks in action when a pipe broke at my neighbor's place, and they were there. I'm happy to report that they were. Our staff was on scene rapidly, professionally, and took care of business, which is exactly what you want to see when the pipes meet their demise.
Where this happened?
Several days after Christmas.
Where?
Where?
Yeah.
One house west of mine.
Oh, wow. Okay. I thought our crews, while we're on the subject, did a great job with the snow plowing and the over the holidays. Yeah. And the ice. Council Randall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have nothing to report.
Okay, Council Long.
It's been pretty slow because of the holidays, but I did meet with the city manager, and I've also met with, not really sure his official title right now, Director Joshua Chandler from Planning and Urban Renewal items, and also participated on the Traffic Safety, Traffic Safety Committee meeting. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilor McLaughlin.
Nothing to report, however, a comment. Using opioid monies for safety, revitalizing the mid team, which has not been in operation. I'd like to see a consideration to maybe looking at some of those funds for that purpose, to revitalize the mid team efforts. That's my only comment.
I have 2 items. Number 1, I would like the city council to think about over the next several days where you'd like to be assigned for your committees. Just to remind you all, we do have council liaisons with the airport committee or airport board. Councilor McLaughlin is the city council liaison with that. Sister City is currently Councilor Long. Historic Landmarks is Councilor Randall. Traffic Safety is also Councilor Long. Urban Renewal, Councilor Long, Councilor McLaughlin, and Councilor Richardson. Q Life, Councilors Randall and Runyon. Community Outreach, Councilor Richardson, and the Local Public Safety Coordinating Committee is currently Councilor Runyon. By my count, everyone has 2. And if you're interested in either switching or getting on another one or remaining the same, I'd like to know, because we like to make these assignments or these appointments at our next council meeting, which is 2 weeks from tonight. And finally, it's going to be that time of the year in the next few months where the city council will be responsible for evaluations of 3 people that report to the city council: our city manager, our city attorney, and our municipal judge. Most of you, all of you have been through this process at least once. I did know that the last time around, there were some suggestions about how we can make the process better. And I'd like to invite every one of you to contact me with any suggestions. And if any of you would like to form a subcommittee, so to speak, to come up with some ideas on how to make the process better, I would like to hear it. And I'm not looking at anybody in particular, but there were several comments last year. I thought the process went fine, but I would be open to, and I agree that certain tweaks to the system would probably be in order. So again, that invitation's out. We have plenty of time. I believe May is the month where we'll actually be conducting it. So we have 4 months to get this done. So I'll be looking forward to any comments or suggestions on your part. That is all I have. Thank you. Item 10 is the consent agenda. Items of a routine and non-controversial nature are placed on the consent agenda to allow the city council to spend its time and energy on the more important items and issues. Any councilor may request an item be pulled from the consent agenda and be considered separately. Items pulled from the consent agenda will be placed on the agenda at the end of the action. At the end of the action items section. Tonight, we have 2 items on the consent agenda. The first is the approval of the December 12th City Council meeting minutes, and the second is a resolution assessing property for the costs of nuisance abatement. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Counselor Long,
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
is there a second? Randall. It's been moved by Counselor Long and seconded by Counselor Randall to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there any discussion?
I have a question. Is the owner of the real property located at 1724 present tonight? Are they in the audience? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion on the consent agenda? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 11A is awarding of a contract for the Dog River Fish Screening and Passage Improvements. Mr. David Anderson, our Director of Public Works.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of council. As you all know, we began work on the project this last summer. We were able to complete the construction of nearly 6,000 feet of pipe, which is in service. Work's been suspended for the season. The project site is currently under snow, and work will resume in spring of 2023 as soon as the access is open to us to do so. Tonight, I'm bringing forward to you the last contract we have to award for this project, and that's to construct fish screening and passage systems at the intake of the new pipeline. Dog River has coastal resident cutthroat trout in it, and those are designated as a sensitive species in Oregon. Historically, there has been no screening on our intake, and these fish could be drawn into the pipeline and transported to South Fork Mill Creek and potentially harmed in the process. The pipeline intake dam and the spillway are also impediments to safe passage of fish past the intake. So construction of these improvements will prevent the fish in Dog River from being drawn into the pipeline and will provide a safe way for fish in Dog River to move past the intake and harm. The city had previously offered to voluntarily construct these systems, and our discussions with Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife and U.S. Forest Service in about 2010. And because of those commitments, the construction of these improvements is now a requirement under the city's permits and some of our funding. We've completed the design of the proposed or the improvements to be constructed, and that design has now been approved as of Friday by the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife and the U.S. Forest Service. A contract for their construction was advertised widely. I think we had it in 10 different plan centers. We conducted a pre-bid site tour. We conducted a pre-bid virtual meeting for potential bidders, and we ultimately received 5 bids on the project. The low bid was received from a company called Tapany Incorporated at $2,464,430. Within Fund 53, which is the Water Reserve Fund, We currently have 12,000, I wish 12,000. We currently have $12,395,668 budgeted in the current year for the pipeline project. Of that 12 million, $4,477,566 is yet to be committed. It's available for use. And the contract amount in front of us tonight is $2,464,430. So there are adequate funds available to award this project. With that, it's staff's recommendation that the city council move to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Tapani Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $2,464,430 for contract number 2022-007, the Dog River Fish Screening and Passage Improvements Contract.
Thank you. Is there any questions for Mr. Anderson? Council Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dave, sorry, I should have inquired ahead of time, but time got away from me this past a week. Roughly, do you recall how much habitat is upstream of the dam? How much stream?
I want to say it's in the
habitat is-
neighborhood of 6 miles.
So that's a goodly number.
Yeah. And it could be
this-
4.5 miles.
And this is some number of miles.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
it's not like 300 feet or something.
No.
I asked because, I mean, that's also a goodly number of dollars we're talking about for dam removal and screening.
It is. It it was a surprise to us how much it ended up costing.
Yeah.
If we had it to do over again in 2010, we'd probably have a different conversation.
This is not optional for us.
Not at this point. And I say that because it's identified in the conditional use permit and the NEPA analysis done by the Forest Service.
Yeah.
And it was promised in our applications for the funding, both for the $8+ million loan grant combination from the Infrastructure Finance Authority and the $1 million from Oregon Water Resources Department.
I've seen perhaps just once where we've had a contract come before us and your advice, your recommendation was to put it back out, and you are not advising that.
I am not. We had an engineer's estimate of $2.1 million on this. We still are kind of finding that bids are coming in all over the place. It's been tough for the engineers to accurately estimate.
Yeah.
You might recall that we did the pipeline construction, and I think the engineers were very conservative in their estimate because we were experiencing so much inflation, and they had an engineer's estimate of nearly $9 million, and we came in at 5.9. So we were really happy about that. Now we're going to use some of those savings on the fish passage.
Thank you, Dave.
I will say that we have been very cognizant of the cost, and in our discussions with Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife to come up with a design that they would approve, we were definitely looking for the lowest cost option available to us.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Where is Tapani located?
Battleground, Washington.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion. Anybody like to make a motion?
Mayor Mays. I'll move to authorize the city manager to enter into contract with, what is it?
Tapani.
Tapani Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $2,464,430 for contract number 2022-007, the Dog River Fish Screening and Passage Improvements Contract.
I'll second.
It's a tie.
That goes to the gentleman.
Council Runyon, was that you, Council Runyon? It's been moved by Council McLaughlin and seconded by Council Runyon to authorize the city manager to enter into the contract with Tapani. Is there any more discussion or questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Item 12A on the agenda is an authorization to provide sanitary sewer services to property outside the city limits. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you. The city's received a request from the owners of property located at 1420 West 13th Street to connect to the city's sanitary sewer system. This request is being made because to serve an existing residence because their existing septic tank has failed. The property, it's kind of unique. It's located outside the city limits. Part of it's outside and part of it's inside the urban growth area. And it's all located within the Columbia Gorge National Scenic Area. It's one of those areas where there's some overlap between the urban growth area and the scenic area. Current maps show that the portion of the property and some of the existing home are inside the urban growth area. And just as a reminder, the urban growth area is where urban services are ultimately planned to be provided. There is a city-owned sanitary sewer main in West 13th that could serve the residents. Because that sanitary sewer main is as close as it is to the house, the North Central Public Health District has indicated that it would not issue the property owners a permit to put in a new septic tank. So they have very few options available to them. If approved, the property owner also will need to construct a private sewer service line from their house down the hill to the sewer main in West 13th Street. It'll generally follow the alignment of the existing driveway, which crosses two other private properties before you get to West 13th Street. This request is unusual in that it involves a property and a residence that are located partially inside the urban growth area and completely within this national scenic area. As such, the provision of sanitary sewer service to that property requires approvals from Wasco County, Columbia Gorge National Scenic Area, in addition to the Dallas City Council. Since the house currently has no functioning sewer system, it's our understanding that the owner has applied for an expedited review of its applications to Wasco County and the scenic area. This request is being brought to the council tonight in advance of those other approvals having been received so that we can avoid further delays if and when those approvals are obtained. As mentioned, the new service line would have to cross other private properties, and that property owner will need to obtain easements from the adjacent property owners for the construction and ownership of that sewer line before we would allow them to connect to the city system. The property owner was initially unaware of the required permitting and authorizations that would be needed for this, and they began work without obtaining any of the required approvals. At this time, work on the service line's been suspended pending the needed approval, and the house remains without a functioning sewer system. It's staff's understanding that Wasco County and the scenic area are both have agreed to utilize their expedited processes to permit the requested sewer line. And we would require the property owner to provide a proof of easement from the neighboring private property owners for that new service line. As you know, the provision of water sanitary sewer services outside the city limits requires the authorization from the city council. And it's been our practice to require consents to annex as a condition of providing water and or sanitary sewer services to property located outside the city limits, thereby allowing the option for future annexation if the city council were to decide to do so. If this sanitary sewer service is approved, a consent to annex will be obtained from the property owner making the request. In terms of budget implications, there's no cost to the city with this request. If approved, the property owner making the request will have to pay for the cost of the installation of the service line, and they'll pay to the city $1,789 in sanitary sewer SDCs and a $1,903 connection fee. Once they're receiving service, they'll be charged monthly sanitary sewer rates, which are the outside city rates, which are currently 1.7 times the inside city rates. With that, it's staff's recommendation that the city council move to authorize the provision of city sanitary service to the property at 1420 West 13th Street, contingent upon approvals from Wasco County Planning and the Columbia Gorge National Scenic Area as applicable, and the acquisition and recording of related easements by the owner of real properties located at 1420 West 13th Street.
Any questions for Mr. Well, is the owner of the property here tonight?
I do not believe so.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Anderson?
I'm just curious, that address would seem to be well within the city limits. Are we talking about like southwest of St. Peter's? Is that kind of the?
Yes.
Like
Yeah, well,
a hillside there?
Southwest of St. Mary's.
Yeah, St. Mary's, okay.
Yeah, and up on the hill a ways,
Okay.
and it's not inside the city limits currently. The city limits, if I recall correctly, is 13th Street, and this is up the hill from that.
Well, it's on West 13th Street,
It's got a West 13th Street address, yes.
but
The
it's.
property is
south of
located on
that?
the uphill or south side of 13th Street.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I know where that is. Any other questions? Counselor Long?
So do I understand correctly that we need, if we don't approve this, then there could not be a house there because they wouldn't have any sewer or any other option for sewer?
I guess, no, I think that the house already exists.
Well, right, but I mean, as far as
Um,
living, right, you have to have.
Yeah, I mean, they could use outhouses, portable sanitary facilities. They could basically be off the grid, I guess, as far as sanitary sewer service goes. But like I say, I've got a copy of the letter from the Wasco County Health District saying that they would not permit the installation of a new septic tank.
Did anything like this ever happen before?
I haven't brought a situation exactly like this to you. This is the first time I recall getting a request involving property that's in a scenic area. Nearly all the requests that we consider have been outside city limits, but inside the urban growth area. The rare exception to that has been a request for water services out along Mill Creek Road where they're adjacent to our transmission lines. So this is somewhat unique.
And is the homeowner confident that he's going to be able to get those easements?
I haven't talked to the homeowner. I know that we've got our planning staff here. Can you, Kayla?
Please identify yourself.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Cook. I'm the associate planner with the City of the Dalles Community Development Department. So the owner of the property have not provided proof of easement for this utility line. The property is accessed off of 13th Street via a private access. And so I am waiting to get proof of easement for
Okay.
this development.
And if they agree to annex, why would they have to pay non-resident rates?
So one quick correction to that is that they cannot annex into city limits because they are in the National Scenic Area. A property that is within the National Scenic Area and outside of city limits may not be annexed in.
According to their rules.
And I guess just to that point is the rationale behind getting a consent to annex is if we ever expand the urban growth boundary, then there might be that opportunity in the future and we would have the opportunity, I think, at that time.
Hmm.
Just depending on where an expansion of the UGB might occur.
Okay. Any other questions? Counselor Runyon?
The approval of this as it goes along, does that put any impetus on other residential properties in adjoining areas?
No, the main already exists, so it's not like we're doing a main extension that then brings other properties closer if that's our city or municipal code requires that properties inside the city limits or inside the urban growth area connect to the city sanitary sewer if they're within 300 feet of an existing main. We're not building a new main here, so we're not expanding our service area really. Other than, the main's already there. We're not getting closer to other properties by doing this. The new pipe to be constructed will be completely privately owned service line to the house.
Yeah. So with this, if it's approved and everything, there's no push at all against other residential property owners out there that they would have to join as well. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Anybody like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Counselor Long?
I move to authorize the provision of city sanitary sewer service to the property at 1420 West 13th Street, contingent upon approvals from Wasco County Planning and the Columbia Gorge National Scenic Area as applicable, and the acquisition and recording of related easements by the owner of real property located at 1420 West 13th Street.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Been moved by Counselor Long and seconded by Counselor Richardson to provide sanitary sewer services to the property as described. Is there any other discussion or questions for the staff? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
And
both.
with that approval, it's just been handed to me that Wasco County and the scenic area have also approved this service. So
Oh,
last step for them would be providing evidence to us of the easements.
great. Well,
Thank you.
Good luck to them. Thank you.
Sorry, I made a mistake.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's okay.
I'm going to be reading a motion to go into executive session in just a minute.
So put me down, but yeah, I can't remember what I want.
No, I was given two. Somebody picked the wrong one, but looks like I didn't.
Oh, no, I tell you,
Need like a laminated.
while we're doing, but yeah, going to the Merkley thing. Got a lot of seniority. Now.
Okay, this City Council of the City of the Dalles will now meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192.6602F to consider information or records that are exempt by law from public inspection. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend this executive session. Although the members of the audience are asked to leave the meeting. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to record or report on or otherwise disclose any of the deliberations or anything said about these subjects during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made in executive session. I don't need a motion to go into executive session, do I?
No, there should be. Did you read both citations? Because there's two separate.
This is directly following the exempt.
Oh, no, you should announce both. Please announce both. As the authority.
Do I have to read this paragraph then?
We'll have, okay.
Read the whole thing.
And. Yeah. Say and.
And read it.
Okay, well, then you.
And the City Council of the City of the Dalles will meet in executive session in accordance with ORS 192.6602D to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to carry on labor negotiations. Representatives of the news media will not be allowed to attend this executive session concerning labor negotiations. No decision may be made in executive session. At the end of the executive session, we will return to open session and welcome the audience back into the meeting. We anticipate returning to open session within 45 minutes.
30 to 45.
Well, it says 30 to 45, but I'm used to a little longer. So, okay, so with that, we're going to executive